Oh, yeah. Did you go to the shows, the plays they go on there?
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. If you'd stand and join me, the flag is in the back for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
agenda review.
I have nothing to add.
Nothing to add, okay. We'll move on to acceptance of minutes. Acceptance of the minutes, the January 7th minutes of the Building and Maintenance Committee.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any errors, corrections, changes? Okay, all those in favor of the approving the minutes of the January 7th Building and Maintenance meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? Okay, thank you. Acceptance of the school board meeting minutes from January 7th.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to accept the school board meeting minutes for January 7th. Any errors, corrections, omissions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Chair votes aye. Thank you. And February 2nd, which was the deliberative session, minutes for approval for the deliberative session on Saturday, February 2nd.
So moved.
So moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the deliberative session on February 2nd. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye. Thank you. All right, we're up to, let's go rally.
Well, it's great to be here at Crescent Lake School, and it's wonderful to see all the faculty and the large number of students and families here. So I know we probably have something special on deck here. And James, if you would do the introductions.
Sure. So first off, thank you to the board for your continued support. Generally, in the past, we've done more academic, some academic things we've done with robotics, some of the other activities we've been doing on in the school. This year, we really want to showcase some of the other opportunities that our children get to participate in here at Crescent Lake School. Of our population, over 50% of our children participate in band, and that's either through band or our jazz band that we offer as well, for just an enrichment piece with the jazz band. We have over 40% of children participating in chorus, and that's grades 4, 5, and 6. Band is just 5 and 6. And then we also have our after-school program, which has a lot of different activities, but one of them starts actually in, I think, October, and that's our theater program. So we have over 40% of our children participating in theater, either through the performance or through our set crew. So to kind of highlight some of those activities that we do and we offer here, tonight what we get to see is one of our scenes from our play this year, and our play is Junie B. Jones. And so Mrs. Goodwin, our director, I'm going to turn it over to her so that you guys can hear a little bit about the theater, a little bit about the play this year, and then after that, Mrs. Chassie, our band director, will put on a performance from our band.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually heard this is a dancing group, am I right? I won't make you dance this year. So have any of you ever read the Junie B. Jones book series? Yes. So this is sort of a compilation of about 4 or 5 different of the versions of the book, different in the book series. And so what you're going to see tonight is a first grade classroom, and Mr. Scary is going to be played by our fifth grade teacher, Mr. Schaffner, who has graciously stepped in for one of our students who couldn't be here tonight. So we're very, very grateful to him. But this is his lesson on it's time to look at some words and see what they are and draw what they see.
Dear first grade journal, okie dokie. I guess things are a little better. Kind of. Because I'm getting to know the kids in my class. There's Bossy Head May.
Well, if it isn't you again, Junie Jones.
B, B, B. You are always forgetting my B. And that is not acceptable, sister. And Herb. And Lenny. And Jose.
Hola.
Huh?
Whoops. Hola means hello in Spanish. I know 2 different languages, and sometimes I forget which one I'm speaking.
Wow, Jose, you speak 2 different languages? Cool.
Big deal. I know how to speak Spanish too. I can count all the way to 3 in Spanish. Does anyone want to hear me?
Not really.
Not me.
Me neither.
Nope.
Uno, dos, tres.
Good morning, boys and girls.
Good morning, Mr. Scary!
I have a very fun assignment for you this morning. Have a look at these words on the board. And without talking to your neighbors, I want you to pick one of those words and draw a picture of it.
Oh, goody goody. I love this kind of assignment. Mr. Scary, I am perfect at not talking to my neighbor.
That's fine, May. Is everyone ready? Okay, go.
Catman coat, ice cream cone. Which one shall I choose? Bat ball boat, starfish clock. No time left to lose. Sun, sky, van, dog, cow, moon. Plate and fork and knife and spoon.
Better hurry up and soon. Time to make a drawing. 30 seconds to go.
Catman hoots, ice cream cone.
Tick tock, tick tock, tick.
Bat ball butt, starfish clock.
Why do I feel sick?
Judy B, why the frown? Mine will be the best in town.
Children, put your pencils down. Time is up for drawing.
Time is up for drawing.
All right, let's see how everyone did. Oh, my, look at that. Lenny, you drew a man wearing a coat. Both man and coat were on the board. Oh, cool, bat and ball.
Wait a minute.
Oh, Jose, you drew an ice cream cone, didn't you?
Sí, me gusta helado.
Wait a minute.
Oh, very interesting clock, May. The big hand has 5 fingers on it. That is very unusual.
Yes, I created it myself. Plus, clock was the hardest word up there. I bet I'm the only one who knew the word clock. I bet.
Clock?
Oh, Judy B, don't you want to show me your drawing? Don't you want a gold star for today?
No, thank you. I don't really want a gold star today. Thank you for asking.
I'm sorry, Judy B. I have to see your drawing to make sure you understood the assignment. Wow, Judy B. What a wonderful picture of a
screaming chicken. You know, cluck, cluck, cluck. See, I use capital letters for the clucks. Capital letters are for screaming, correct?
I suppose so. But you see, cluck isn't on the board.
Well, what about the butt? Bull? Coot? You?
Judy B, sounds to us like you can't sing for the rest of the morning. Skip your classes. Guess what, Judy? You need glasses.
see you at our show. It's just before April vacation on Wednesday and Thursday, just before April vacation. Please come. We'd love to have you.
So our after-school program for the theater meets once a week. They've been meeting since the performance has been meeting once a week since October. And then our set crew has, after the holiday break, has started to meet to build the sets and get the design all set. So, next, I'm sorry?
When is it?
It's right before April vacation. I think it's that Wednesday.
Here at the arts.
No, we do it here. It's nice, as you see, our families are well invested in us and obviously their children. So it's nice to bring them back into the schools. And I love the Art Center. It's beautiful, but it's kind of, it's nothing like an elementary performance at the school and the stage here. So it will be here. And we do use the Art Center for our holiday concert with the band and the chorus. And then we also do a spring that we do over at the Art Center as well with our band and our chorus. And then in the spring, we also have our 4th grade recorder concert. It's actually my favorite, where the kids have been practicing the recorder all year, and they get a chance to try out some of the instruments and really first-time musicians. And it's really very genuine, and the kids work really, really hard on that. So Lisa and Karen work on that as well in the spring. And now I'll turn it over to our band with Ms. Chassie.
Hello, everyone. We're going to play 2 selections for you tonight. The first one's called Rock the House, and the second one is the Crescent Lake rendition of Duke Ellington's Sea Jam Blues. He also takes some private piano lessons. This gives him an opportunity to showcase his skills in that area too. So it's neat. We're gonna move. dabbling around with improvising. Improvising is very risky. I was very afraid to improvise until I was in college. So I have 4 brave students tonight who are going to improvise, which means they're kind of making it up as they go within certain guidelines of notes they can use. All right, so we're ready? Who's first? Go to the left. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and.
Yeah, I'll close one. So, yeah, and just a thank you to the parents, again, for, in a busy night to come out for a little bit to share what you guys are working on the day, to share with everyone else. I appreciate your time and energy they bring to us, so thank you. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to continue the meeting with our student representative report, Mr. Dene.
Hello, everyone. Glad to see you all here tonight. With the first half of the school year officially behind us, Kingswood is gearing up with many second semester activities. In athletics, winter sports are beginning to wrap up. Congratulations to Caitlin Carpenter, who finished 4th overall in the long jump and qualified for New England's for indoor track. Kingswood basketball beat Kennett at the buzzer last week, and the athletic department was very happy to host the One Wheel Wonders on Friday night. Kingswood Baseball hosted a baseball clinic on January 26th, and there was a nice turnout of elementary and middle school students on that Saturday afternoon. The athletic department would like to thank the school board for allowing them to attend the SALT conference. Finally, spring sports registration is open. Winter Carnival starts this Saturday with the kickoff dance. The school will be hosting a unified basketball game on Tuesday, the 20th, during task. There will also be an all-school assembly, where students will participate in games and classes will compete against each other. All of it wraps up on Friday with the annual lip sync at the Kingswood Arts Center. Poetry Out Loud is happening tonight at the high school after being rescheduled twice. The winner will go on to compete in the state tournament. The high school guidance department will be hosting 8th grade parent night on February 13th. That is rescheduled as well. So we hope the weather doesn't interfere this time. And last Friday night was the Empty Bowls fundraiser. Local businesses provided soups, and pottery shops and art clubs around the districts provided bowls. There was a very big showing for that fundraiser, so we're glad that it was so successful. This is a technical education week at the high school. KRHS is celebrating with activities all week, including a breakfast put on by the Culinary Arts Department. There will also be a career fair, a college fair, and a multi-course dinner on Valentine's Day. The Tech Center will end the week with an ice cream social. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate it. Okay, part of tonight we're going to discuss the two petition warrant articles that were at the deliberative session last week, and then we're going to do hopefully a slightly abbreviated budget presentation. And before that, I'll go over the other articles that were discussed Saturday, just so everybody's aware of what is going to be on the warrant articles. Yeah, sure, that'll be fine. Yeah.
Sorry.
I need to make sure this is happening.
Okay.
Oh, sure, that's fine. Okay, first we'll discuss Article 12, and I'll read very quickly the article as it was written. To see if the Wentworth Regional School District will vote for RSA 32:5-B to adopt a tax cap whereby the governing body or budget committee shall not permit a recommended budget that increases the amount to be raised by local taxes based upon the prior fiscal year's actual amount of local taxes raised by more than 2% was the original article. What will be in the on the ballot will be not to be raised by more than 25%. The school board does not recommend this article submitted by petition. The special warrant article requires a three-fifths majority vote, wherein only affirmative and negative votes are used to calculate 3/5 is required. Article 12 initially proposed restrictions on developing a school budget that would result in no greater than a 2% increase on the amount to be raised by local taxes. In other words, a 2% tax cap. At the deliberative session, the 2% was amended to 25%. However, the school board is opposed conceptually to the idea of a tax cap. School districts are required to present a budget based on the gross amount which is a total cost to deliver programs and services. However, you will recall in our discussion about taxes that the district's revenue, the number of students from each town, state aid, and the cooperative formula all combine to determine local assessment. Each town would still be responsible for its portion of the total of the whole. A tax cap of 2% as originally written would have been devastating to our schools. The school board would have no choice other than to consider cutting athletic programs, extracurricular activities, or even the academic programs that are not mandated by the state. With this constraint, we would also very likely have to consider reducing teachers, which would increase our class sizes. With the limitations a 2% tax cap would have imposed over the long term, we would also be in a position of needing to consider closing some of our schools. I understand the concerns of taxpayers who put forth the original petition. However, this is a misguided effort. It diverts attention from the real issue, which is the state's refusal to live up to its promise to fund the 35% of retirement costs and the 4% reduction each year in stabilization money and the funding of catastrophic aid. And to be a little more specific on the states refusing to pay the 35% retirement cost, in this year's budget alone, the state is telling the local taxpayers that they have to pay an additional $784,000 in taxes because the state refuses to pay the 35% that has been promised over the years. And this all started back in 2011, where it was 400 and some odd thousand, and it's grown partially because of increases in payments in payroll, but also because the rate that the district pays for teachers into the retirement system has continued to increase as well to take care of the unfunded liability that was created over the years. So part of the responsibility that the state, a lot of the responsibility that the state has is being reneged on at this point in time. Economic development overall would likely be negatively affected, impacting the small towns in our district. Young families are more likely to move into a community that has a history of supporting its children and a school district, which has a history of meeting the needs of its students. The school board affirmed its decision not to recommend this warrant article, even with the change, because the real issue is a refusal of the state to take its responsibility in educating our children. And the board urges you to vote no on this article in March. So I'll take any questions on the tax cap article. Diane?
Diane Smith from Brookfield. Let me move over here. So, as you probably know, I submitted the warrant article. Unfortunately, it was reported in the paper that I created the warrant article, or that I was the proponent. I was not the author of the article. However, I do support it. I did support it. I don't anymore, because frankly, I have to agree with the chairman that for slightly different reasons, that it has become meaningless, and I would suggest that folks not support that at the ballot, at the voting booth. But I do want to clarify that the tax cap, had I had an opportunity or enough resources, I would have distributed these materials at the deliberative session, which was both a copy of the 2 RSAs that pertain to this warrant article about the tax cap. And it very clearly says under the primary RSA that the legislative body may override the cap by the usual procedures applicable to annual meetings and deliberative sessions of the legislative body. The provisions of this section shall not limit the legislative body's authority to increase or decrease the amount of any appropriation or the total amount of all appropriations. The tax cap was simply on the development of the budget. It was not to constrain the budget entirely. It is still up to the voters at the deliberative session to choose whether or not to add or deduct from the various line items in the budget. So while I understand that it may seem on the surface that a tax cap means that no increase can be beyond that limit, that is not what the RSA says. I also wanted to provide the document or the graph that I had produced. And I alluded to this in my comments that were perhaps not as articulate as I would have liked at the deliberative session, which shows the change over a 10-year period of the local tax burden, the percent of change from year to year. Not the dollar growth, but rather the change, the variability of the rates, the local tax burden the local tax burden for the whole school district. It varies, it's all over the map, whereas the blue line on this, and I have some handouts, is enough, I think, for most, I have 20 handouts. But in the last several years, it has significantly exceeded the rate of change of the consumer price index. You know, for this reason and for the reasons that I also alluded to at the deliberative session, and that is that it wasn't about the tax cap so much as about the budgeting for the school district. I mean, I support the school district. I'm not trying to dismantle it by this or any other means. But the variability in the local tax burden is a hardship for at least some, if not many, of the member communities. By not being, particularly the smaller communities, maybe not so much Tuftonboro and Wolfeboro, where we, who are concerned about the development of the local budgets, wait anxiously to see what the tax rate's going to be predicted from the school board, from the school district, so that we can move forward and make intelligent decisions on our own local budgets. Because in Brookfield, it's between, I think it was between 60 and 75%, depending on the year of our tax burden. So both my support for the tax cap was to, in addition to the budget committee warrant article, which I did write, was to begin to minimize this variability. This is the graphic for the town of Wolfeboro for the same period of time. It's very similar, although there are some differences. I would ask that, and I mentioned this at the deliberative session, with regard to the undesignated fund balance. Most communities, as I understand it, Brookfield included, use the unreserved fund balance from year to year as needed to flatten out the increases over time to the taxpayers. And I would ask that moving forward, that some serious consideration be made by the school district to creating a larger buffer that might absorb from year to year those unexpected variations that get passed on to the, in total. I understand there's going to be variability based on the formula distributing costs to the different towns, but at least in aggregate, it can flatten out the changes from year to year in the increases in the budget. Predictability, I think, is one of, not I think, I know is one of the reasons that I wanted to stand up and try to get some improvement in that regard. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things, and thank you, Diane. One thing about the increases over the last several years, and I've got some numbers here, and this gets back to some of the state responsibility. In 2011, 2012, the state, again, that was when they zeroed out the amount that they were going to pay for the retirement plan. And that cost the taxpayers $347,539 in your tax bills. Following year, it went up to $414,526. In 2013-14, it was $527,000. 2014-2015, $544,000. 15-16, $598,000. 2017-2018, $603,657. 2017-2018, $698,820. 2018-2019, $734,981. And this budget that we're presenting, $784,770. Now take that out of the increases for each one of those years and see what the actual increase in the budget was. Because if the state had funded that money, our budget increases would not have been as high. So the state's responsible for part of our budget increase by taking that money away and telling the local taxpayers to pay it. And it's about time that we contact our state legislators and tell them that they have to step up to the plate. This was a commitment that they made when the retirement plan was first put in. In addition to those increases, the rate that the school district pays for the teacher's retirement has gone from 11.3% in 2011 to 17.8% this year. And most of that money goes to handle the unfunded liability that was created by mismanagement of the retirement fund years and years ago. So it's not just the school district costing you money. It's the state of New Hampshire and the legislature that's taking this money out of your pocket. Well, that's all I'm going to say about that at this point. Any other questions on the tax cap? Yes, sir.
Rick Surratt, I'm a selectman in Brookfield. I oppose this article in any form and tax caps in any form, as well as many people I represent oppose this. It's apparent, and like the chair demonstrated, a good portion of these problems of funding are at the state level. And we should be looking there instead of at the school board. The budget here is solid, it's transparent, and the work done by the board and what I witnessed by touring some of these schools is should be commended. And again, I oppose this article. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to the formation of the Budget Committee, which was another article by petition. Again, to see if the Wentworth Regional School District will vote to create a budget committee wherein state committee should serve as this is the amended article that will be on the warrant in March. Would serve as an advisory only capacity to the Wentworth Regional School Board and have 5 members plus 1 member from the school board. The school board will appoint the initial members within 30 days of the election, including the member from the school board, and the advisory committee members' terms will expire at the next annual meeting, at which point the school board may reappoint. Again, the school board does not recommend this article submitted by petition, and it requires a simple majority at the polls. Would also like to take this opportunity to discuss the Budget Committee warrant article. The original petition warrant article was amended to be an advisory budget committee only with 5 members appointed annually and 1 school board member. The board does not recommend this article. This is not the first time the warrant has included a petition article of this nature, and each time it has been soundly defeated. The most recent petition warrant article was in 2010, which was resoundingly defeated 2,293 votes to 1,691. This decision has already been made. The school board is elected by the people to operate the schools. Taxpayers already have chosen their representatives and put them in place. Because of their involvement with the programs, they are in the best position to make the judgments about what reasonable needs are. A budget committee is just another layer of government. It is not in position to make judgments about the legal needs and appropriate programs for children. They do not have enough involvement to make informed decisions. The school board holds several meetings where the budget is discussed and questions and input are welcome. Meetings where budget is specifically discussed start in the fall with 3 finance committee meetings during which administration meets with the finance committee to discuss their recommendations, followed by the preliminary budget hearings, the budget adoption hearing, and the deliberative session. All school board meetings, including these meetings, are open to the public. Thus, any citizen can express their opinions in the budget development process. A budget committee provides a layer between the school board and the construction of the budget, giving individual community voters less of a voice. The Wentworth Regional School District is an SB2 district where everyone has a vote on the budget, plus an open meeting to make changes in it prior to the actual vote. A budget committee can have the impact of lessening the value of the individual vote by taking away the opportunity to vote on certain items removed, altered by a budget committee. In other words, every citizen has a voice through their vote, and the voice need not be filtered by another layer of government bureaucracy. Budget committees have not provided any significant level of cost control. A number of towns in the Wentworth Regional School District have budget committees. Yet a look at the 2018 data from the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration shows that the towns in the Wentworth Regional School District allocate a higher percentage of the tax rate to town government rather than schools. By comparison, the school board is doing a very good job of building a responsible budget without a budget committee. The only town where the ranking of the school allocation is higher than the town government is New Durham, and in that case, it is nearly equal. In Tuftonboro, the ranking is equal. The disparity in ranking of the other towns is significant. The school board does urge a no vote on this article as well. Comments on the budget committee? Diane?
I'm sorry, I wasn't taking notes, and I got lost in that last bit about the comparison of the school district budget to the town budget. What measure were you using?
There's a rubric, we can actually go, it was on the slide, it may be on the slide for the budget presentation, that shows the amount of the percent of the town taxes that go toward the school budget, or the town taxes that go, the percent of town taxes that go toward their individual town budgets. But we can show you on the slide.
Wentworth School District cost in the local tax burden associated with the school district is at least 60% of our tax rate in Brookfield.
In Brookfield, that's correct.
Okay, you said there were none that.
Sometimes the town budgets are equal or
Okay, well, you mentioned just New Durham.
that was one town that came up.
I think when we get to that slide, it'll be more easily understandable because it's a comparison of apples to apples. It's school districts ranked by school district and towns ranked by town. So you can see how the school districts and the town are spending their money against other towns and school districts. So I think when you see the slide, it will make more sense to you.
All right, well, I think that the real point is what is the local burden of our taxes that we pay out to the town? What percentage of that is going to the school district? It really doesn't matter what other school districts you're bringing into the mix. This is the Governor Wentworth School District. Thank you, I'll stop.
Okay, we're going to also do a budget presentation. Before we get into the actual budget, I'm going to go very briefly over the other articles that will be voted on in March. They were not changed at the deliberative session, but I think it's important to understand what else you're going to be voting on. In Article 2, and I'll read it, I won't go through the whole narrative, but I'll read what the article was. To see if the Government-Wentworth Regional School District will vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Government-Wentworth Regional School Board and the Government-Wentworth Support Staff Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. In fiscal year 2020, which is this budget, there'd actually be a reduction of $2,617. 2021 budget would be an increase of $203,203, and in 2022, $213,567. In each one of the three articles that we're going to discuss on the collective bargaining agreements, they include a major change in the health care benefits that the employees are going to be taking. We're changing from the traditional plans to what's called a consumer-driven health plan, where the consumer, which is the employee themselves, have more choices in where they can have their services to save additional money. And part of the change also involves, depending on which group, which collective bargaining agreement, they're going to be paying a portion of the premiums, starting the first year with the support staff. They're going to be paying 2% of the premiums, the second year 2.5%, and the third year 3%. When we put this budget together, it also includes salary increases. So by making the choice to pay part of their premiums and taking a slightly lesser expensive plan, that they would get salary increases to at least keep everyone whole. To go through the budget, the collective bargaining process is very difficult to make sure that no employee is taking home less in their pocket by making another major change. So we did a balancing act between changing the health plan, asking them to pay part of the premium, and giving them enough of an increase in pay to balance things out so nobody is taking home less money going forward. So that's a win for them, and it's a win for the school district. The following article, there's an article in between each one of these next collective bargaining that basically says if that's defeated, the board can come back and open negotiations again and come back to the taxpayers with a revised collective bargaining agreement. Hopefully we won't have to get to that. I think the bargaining agreements were very fair. They were hard fought to get through, but we got through them. And I think they're very fair to the employees of the district, which is our most important asset here. They're the ones that are in the classroom teaching us students every single day. The next article was the next article is the collective bargaining agreement for the teachers. And the teachers opted for a 4-year agreement as opposed to a 3-year agreement that the support staff and the administrators took. Part of the reason for that is they agreed through the collective bargaining process for a different process in paying for the premiums toward their health care. Same health care that everyone else will have. Year 1, the copay is 3% of the premium. Year 2 is 5%. Year 3 is 7%. And year 4 is 10%. So at the end of the 4 years of the bargaining agreement, the teachers will be responsible for 10% of their health care. To go along with that, there's been salary adjustments to, again, make sure that nobody is underwater in any given year. We've gone through the existing staff and made sure that whether it be the 3, 5, 7, or 10%, that each year that no one will be falling behind in their take-home pay, which was very important to make sure that happened. So a very fair agreement for the teachers as well. And the administrators have the same payment schedule as the support staff, 2% the first year, 2.5% the second year, and 3% the third year. And again, same process. We looked at the health plan, wanted to make sure that no one was going underwater during any period of that 3-year collective bargaining agreement. I urge your support for all 3 of these collective bargaining units. They work extremely hard. They're the face that your kids see every day, whether it be a support staff, administrator, or a teacher in the classroom. They're what holds this district together, and they're the important piece in every day in your classroom. So I urge your support on all 3 of those agreements. Any questions on those? Yes, sir.
Jack Ron Haley from Wolfeboro. I can't find, who is the service provider for the healthcare? Who actually is?
It's School Care, which is that a Cigna? It's a Cigna.
Okay.
plan.
Are they a co-employer to us, or are they just a service provider for healthcare?
They're a service provider. School Care takes care of a lot of school districts.
Right, no, I'm very familiar with it, but I'm just asking, are they a co-employer to the district, Kathy? They're just regular?
They're just a service provider.
Just a service provider. Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, two other warrant articles that were on the table on Saturday. The first is the capital improvement warrant article. This has been an article that has been on the warrant for as long as I can remember. It started at $200,000 a year that we'd ask for major maintenance issues that have been identified that aren't part of the regular everyday operations. Over the years, we identify projects that are needed to be done every year. I'd say to the tune of $450,000 worth of projects. Every year we prioritize those that are most important, and we spend the money on this capital improvement warrant every year for those projects, and then next year we come up with a new list and we reprioritize what needs to be done. There were questions over the years since we asked this every year, why don't we just include it in the budget? And we don't for transparency. We want people to understand exactly what we're spending their money on for these major projects. New boilers, new roofs, repairs that are outside the day-to-day operation of the schools. And it would be very easy to just automatically include it in the budget, but we want to go through the process to let you know what your money is being spent on. Over the last several years, we have been asking for $150,000, especially after the Kingswood project. We thought we could back off a little bit and reduce that from $200,000 to $150,000. It's time to, because of the age of some of our buildings and some of the needs, bring it back up to $200,000. We have projects probably in the $400,000 or $500,000 area that could be done. We know we can't do them all at once, so we'll reprioritize and we'll use this money as wisely as we can going forward. So that's the warrant article for capital improvements. And the other warrant article is one that we've heard of for the last 6 years anyway, and that is to take $60,000 from the fund balance at the end of the year that has not been spent and put it into a capital reserve fund for the replacement of our turf athletic field. The athletic field has a lifespan of about 10 to 12 years. The replacement cost is about $750,000. And if we stay on track for 12 years at $60,000, we will have the $720,000 plus the interest that we've earned to be able to pay for that athletic field replacement when it's needed, without the taxpayers getting hit all at once. So that's the turf field warrant article. Any questions on that? Diane?
At the deliberative session, I asked the question, but it never really got answered. And that is, in these, and I prefaced my comments with, I think it's great how you were able to renegotiate these agreements with the unions. The caveat, though, is that for two of them, there is going to be a very significant increase in the impact on the budget for next year, according to this schedule of estimated increases. And if you add all three of them together, it's almost 400,000, 384,409 is the jump that we will sustain next year over the contract costs of this year. And my question that I posed was, where in the budget is that going to be made up? Or is it simply just going to be added to the budget for next year?
If the collective bargaining agreements are approved, it will be added to the budget next year, and we will do whatever we can to find savings elsewhere within the budget. Part of that savings, hopefully, will come from the state legislature, again, stepping up to the plate and giving us $800,000 next year back that they should have given us every year for the last 10 years. So it would be nice if we had an increase of $300,000 or $400,000, and the state gives us the $800,000 next year estimated that they should be giving us. We'll actually have a $400,000 reduction in that line item next year. Okay, we can do a budget presentation. And I don't want to take all night doing this, but I'd like to go through the budget for the people, certainly that we're not able to go through or to be at the deliberative session. I think it's very important to understand what goes into the budget. And I'll read fast, and Kathy can click fast, and we'll go from there. Yeah, I gotta find the budget actually. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start the budget discussion with some information about the budget process, so you have an idea of how we arrive at the final budget recommendation. Preparation of the budget begins in October. The principals work with the faculty and staff who provide them with requests or recommendations regarding what is needed for each school. Each administrator submits a budget to the SAU office. The business administrator and superintendent of schools meet with each of them to discuss their requests. If there is a large increase in an individual school budget, unless there is a special circumstance, the administrator is asked to review the budget again and reduce it, while keeping their priorities intact. After this, if a large increase remains, a second cut may occur. Personnel requests are made at the same time. Requests for positions may or may not proceed to the Finance Committee, depending on the strength of the rationale outlined and the need for the position. The business administrator reviews the district line items and determines the amounts to be requested based on past history, current expenditures, and projected pricing. After cuts, adjustments, and reallocation have been made, the Finance Committee meets with each of the principals, the special education director, the business administrator, and the superintendent to hear the budget requests. At this time, the Finance Committee recommends the changes they feel are necessary to bring a budget to the voters that supports what we are trying to accomplish for the students in our schools and that the voters will support. The budget is the result of this process. When the Finance Committee reviews the requests from the administrators, we consider the programs and services needed to provide a quality education to our students. We are proud of our programs and what our students accomplish. There is a relationship between the condition of the economy and how much taxpayers can afford to pay. We pay attention to the condition of the economy and try to limit the budget increases as much as possible without compromising the quality of our students' education. It is all a balancing act. Collective bargaining agreements have a substantial impact on the budget, with 78% of our budget is spent on personnel. Hiring decisions are some of the most important decisions made in the district. Our staff is our most valuable resource. Maintaining our infrastructure is important in order to preserve the value of our assets and to prevent accelerating costs. If smaller problems are left unattended, they will become larger and more costly. Our enrollment drives many of the budget requests. Supplies, equipment, and personnel are all related to how many students we have. And last but not least, changing social conditions impact what we need to provide our children. Our students need to be prepared for a world dominated by technology. If we are going to teach our children to use technology, there are going to be equipment costs. Another example of changing social conditions is the impact of the opioid crisis. We have more students than ever living with parents who are addicted to opioids or living with other relatives due to addiction in the family. This has a serious impact on the children and the services they need, both in and out of school. A quick look at the New Hampshire's economy is very encouraging. The jobless rate is very low at 2.2%, lower than the national average of 3.7%. A 5% unemployment rate is considered full employment. The current problem in New Hampshire is not that jobs are not available, but people are not available to fill the positions. The Carsey School of Public Policy reports that childhood poverty in New Hampshire is the lowest in the nation, down from last year. 95% of Granite Staters have health insurance, according to the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute, protecting more people from the catastrophic financial impact of serious illness with no insurance. The median household income in New Hampshire has been rising steadily since 2014, last year increasing 2.79% over the past 3 years, just under 9%. According to the latest U.S. Census data, New Hampshire ranks #1 in median household income. New Hampshire's workforce is one of the best educated in the country, and using the most recent statistical data available, the U.S. News and World Report ranked New Hampshire as #1 in the nation for economic opportunity. Right now, the economy in New Hampshire is doing very well, much better than it has in many years. But as good as the economy is, we know not everyone is benefiting from these favorable conditions. So we continue to keep the budget as low as possible without compromising what our students need. The district controls budget growth in several ways. The final budget is based on priorities. Distinguishing between wants and needs is part of the process. Needs are prioritized and included in the budget. However, not every request that is made is granted. Because revenue offsets the tax rate, our SAU office is doing as much as it can to capture reimbursements to the district through Medicaid and special education. All the grants we are entitled to are pursued, and the district has also had success in accessing competitive grant funds. Our 21st Century After School program in Ossipee and our robotics program receive substantial grant funding, for example. Our energy conservation project has been an excellent means of controlling energy costs and have helped to offset other increasing costs. Careful long-term planning is another part of controlling costs, though this can be difficult. It is not uncommon to be saddled with an expense as a result of a mandate from the state legislature without the opportunity to plan for it. This year, for example, legislation was passed requiring water testing to be completed prior to July 1st, this fiscal year, at a cost of more than $31,000 to the district. Data security legislation requires the district to implement procedures prior to July 1st, projected to cost between $50,000 and $60,000 this year, not budgeted. The state legislators passed these laws with no consideration for the fact that budgets had already been approved by the voters for this fiscal year, and these costs are in addition to what was budgeted. The most significant step we have taken this year to control budget growth has been the change to a consumer-driven health insurance plan and the addition of employee contributions to the health insurance premium. As you have heard, the cost of this plan is lower than the traditional plans, and it is projected that the cost of the premiums will rise much slower than the cost of traditional health plans. District enrollment overall is up this year. In some schools, we have more students, and in others, fewer. Enrollment in each school varies from year to year. This has made staffing difficult. However, the schools have found some creative ways to make this work without reducing staff one year and then hiring the next. As the numbers fluctuate at, say, Carpenter School and Crescent Lake Schools, for example, they share a staff member based on which school has the need for an additional classroom. The staff member moves from one school to another each year due to this fluctuation. It is important to note that we anticipated the declining enrollment and reduced staff accordingly through attrition. We also implemented full-day kindergarten without adding staff a few years ago. We have also added Middleton students which bring in tuition to the district. This has kept the growth of the budget down, while at the same time we continue to meet the needs of our students. Currently, after a number of years of declining enrollment, the number of students in our school district seems to be tending upward, which is great news. Now, this is a quick snapshot of the major budget categories and where each currently stands. The employee expenses increased by 2.9%. The general fund increase is at 4.59%. The building maintenance warrant article, again going from $150,000 to $200,000, is a 33.33% increase, but you have to take that into context. And the debt service is down 3.94% for a total increase of 3.32%. Many of the employee expenses have seen reductions. Dental and disability insurance is down, unemployment is down, and health insurance is down for the first time in many years. Once again, the New Hampshire retirement system up significantly, $433,804 from last year, or a 12.84% increase. Give us that $780,000 back and we'll be in much better shape. As I have said many times, the state continues to renege on its promise to pay for its share of the retirement cost and has shifted the responsibility to you, the local taxpayer. After several years of reducing staff, we have included some part-time positions in the budget. Included this year are a 50% construction trades teacher, a 50% L&A position formerly covered by the Perkins Grant, a 50% special education position for New Durham, and a 30% increase in special education position for Wolfeboro Central School. The special education positions are needed in order for the schools to meet the requirements of the IEPs mandated by federal law. The construction trades position will train and prepare students to enter the construction field, trades field after graduation, where we know there are good jobs waiting for them. And likewise, the L&A position is required in order for the Technology Center to graduate students who are LNA certified. Part-time outreach counselors for Effingham, 20%, and Ossipee, 60%, were requested due to the effects of the opioid crisis on children and families. These positions are very much needed. However, at this time, it is recommended that these positions be funded by pursuing a grant that may be available for this purpose in order to keep the budget down. Looking at the other expense areas, health services shows an increase. This is due to two factors. The cost of our employee agreement with Huggins Hospital for school nurses increased, and a nursing position that was formerly included in wages is now included with the Huggins agreement. Even with the increase, it is still more cost efficient for the district to employ our nurses through the hospital. Several expense objects have decreased. Water and sewer, printing and postage, for example. Snow removal, property and liability insurance, and service agreements are all more expensive now, and the increases is reflected in what you see on the board. Throughout the general fund, there are reductions which offset some of the increases. New equipment and replacement of equipment are the most significant increase. This is in large part due to the need to keep our equipment up to date. 10 years ago, during the recession, we were fortunate to receive ARRA funds in the form of a grant from the federal government. This gave the district the opportunity to purchase smart boards and computers for our students. It is time to replace and add to this equipment. The schools have used equipment past the intended lifespan, and we are well beyond the point where we should be replacing and adding to our technology. Updating our infrastructure, particularly servers, is a critical need. The world has become more and more driven by technology, and what used to be a luxury in this area is now essential. You will also notice decreases in testing material, bottled gas, books, and print media, and dues and fees. In the past few years, we have retired the Ossipee, Effingham, and New Durham bonds. We were also able to renegotiate our debt with the Municipal Bond Bank for the Kingswood Complex building project, resulting in a reduction of approximately $41,000 each year until the bond is paid off. Spending can be viewed from 8 functional categories: instruction, support, central administration, school administration, the physical plant, transportation, debt, and miscellaneous and other expense areas. Instruction includes regular education, special education, vocational education, and all co-curricular programs. Support areas pertain to both student and staff. Guidance, health, media services, and professional development are included in this expense area. Central administration includes the school board, superintendent's office, and the business office. School administration refers to the school level management and supervision. Plant, transportation, and debt are self-explanatory. The category Other encompasses adult education, community service, charter school expenses, and any food service paid by local tax dollars. Governor Wentworth allocates a slightly greater portion of its budget for instruction than its counterparts throughout the state. New Hampshire schools allocate 62.6% of their budget for instruction, while GWRSD allocates 62.9%, a variance of 0.3%. We allocate a greater portion of our budget for school administration. On the other hand, we allocate less of our budget on support. The GWRSD transportation allocation is only slightly larger than what the state allocates, which is an accomplishment for the district, given that the GWRSD and Plymouth are the 2 geographically largest districts in the state. The portion allocated to GWRSD and for school facilities across the state is exactly the same. The debt in GWRSD is a higher allocation than the allocation across the state, and this comes at no surprise due to the Kingswood Complex renovation. And our central administration allocation is more than 2.5 times lower than that which is directed to central administration in other districts. This year, we are pleased to see some increases in our revenue. The more revenue we generate, the more taxes are offset. Our building aid decreases as we pay down the bonds, so we see less revenue there. The increase in projected revenue we see is in the state grant, special education, formerly known as catastrophic aid, Medicaid, vocational programs, and tuition is all good news for the taxpayers. The tuition increase is significant and can be attributed to the agreement we have with Middleton that adjusts the tuition annually based on the increase in our general fund. There are 5 broad areas of expenses within the general fund. The first is personnel. We are a people-driven business, so it probably doesn't come as any surprise that over 78% of our expenses are employee-related. We have discussed our efforts to controlling these costs by changing healthcare plans and increasing the amount our employees pay toward the premium. The next largest expense area in the budget contains the expenses that are required by law or circumstance. These are items over which we have little or no control. The expenses includes areas such as water, sewer, snow removal, telephone, service agreements, and rubbish collection. This area claims 8.3% of the budget. The legal obligation category is the district's debt, which is 6.9% of the budget, and of course we are required to pay that. Fourth in line with regard to its portion of the budget is the variable category. This is the portion of the budget over which we have the most control. It also has the greatest impact on programs. You can cut dollars for technology equipment and technical services, supplies, or books, but this has a direct impact on instruction. Likewise, you can cut the athletics, but the result will be fewer games or sports teams, again directly impacting students. Finally, there is the pay now or pay later items. These are the routine maintenance items, for example, keeping our mechanical equipment in good shape and repairing minor maintenance problems in our schools before they become major. Other examples include a bus preventative maintenance and repairs, and maintaining our grounds around our school buildings, including playground equipment to prevent accidents. If we don't attend to these items routinely, we will face more costly repairs in the long run. Prior agreements, collective bargaining agreements, legal requirements, and cost dictated by circumstance claims 94.4% of the budget, leaving about 5.6% over which we have some discretion. This is the sheet that has all the information about the cooperative formula. There were some errors on the sheet, so a few areas might have some different calculations because it had occurred. The projected taxes are lower, and we'll get to that in just a minute. And Diane, thank you for bringing those areas to our attention so we can fix those.
That's not the corrected sheet.
Did we not get the right sheet up there?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes it is. Sorry, I changed the colors on mine.
To understand how the money from each community is raised, it is important to understand the cooperative formula. $54,678,573 is the amount of the gross budget. $7,507,601 is subtracted in estimated revenue, or resulting in $47,170,971, which is the amount to be raised through taxation. This amount is distributed in accordance with the cooperative formula. Of that amount, 75% is allocated based on each town's portion of the average daily membership, which is based on the number of students attending from each town. And 25% is based on each town's relative portion of the district's equalized valuation, property values in each town. Each town's allocation is calculated. You can see the result of the calculation in the cooperative apportionment columns. Because all of the towns are required to pay a state tax, education tax, both the state education tax labeled as warrant and the stabilization money labeled as grants are credits used to offset the town's share of its apportionment obligation. Thus, the $47,170,971 is paid as follows: $3,862,079 in state adequacy aid, $9,607,372 in state education taxes, and $33,701,521 in the local education tax. The impact of the budget on each town's tax rate can be seen on the table currently shown on the screen. The equalized value has been updated so that these rates vary from the initial projections. Brookfield, 51 cents, Effingham, $2.98, and we could talk more about that, but that's based mostly on the increase in student population more than anything else. New Durham up 46 cents, Ossipee down 26 cents, Tuftonboro up 27 cents, and Wolfeboro up 5 cents. These rates are not affected just by the school budget, but also by the property values and how many students from each town are in the district and how stabilization money is distributed from the state. This summer at a meeting we held for the selectmen, we heard concerns from Ossipee about the increase in the tax rate, and there was some discussion indicating that the school district's budget increase was the sole reason for the increase. While the budget certainly does affect the tax rate this year, there were other factors that significantly affected the increase in Ossipee. Ossipee's equalized property value increased, and while higher property values are generally good for communities and taxpayers, higher equalized value increases the percent of the total equalized value contribution. Remember, the higher the property values, the greater the contribution to the total assessment. Also affecting Ossipee was the significant increase in the number of students. The average daily membership, or ADM, increased from 556 to 580. With 75% of the formula based on ADM, this is the most significant increase impact on the most significant impact on the increase. And last but not least is the amount of stabilization money. Again, the state is taking 4% of our stabilization money away every year until it's gone. Stabilization money was promised to lessen the burden of taxes on the less property wealthy towns. Since its inception, Ossipee has received the largest amount of stabilization money in the district and stands to be affected the most over time by the reduction. Effingham receives the next largest amount of stabilization money. Sorry.
$5 fee for that.
There should be more than that.
Okay.
Since its inception, Ossipee has received the largest amount of stabilization money in the district and stands to be affected most by the reduction over time. Effingham receives the next largest amount, followed by New Durham and Brookfield. Ossipee received $39,253 fewer dollars in stabilization money this year. Fortunately for the towns with less property value, the cooperative formula provides some relief. With 75% of the formula being based on equalized value, the towns with less property wealth pay less per pupil. On the screen, you can see the tuition for 2018-2019 for each one of the towns. Now, these numbers do reflect the stabilization money reductions and the state grants that bring their total cost down to what you see on the screen. But this is the amount that each town pays once all the factors are in the formula. In order to compare tax rates across the state, the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration equalizes tax rates. This is a process by which property values are adjusted to eliminate the distortion in tax rates that is created when a community either under or overvalues its property. Department of Revenue Administration generates a publication that contains the equalized value for New Hampshire communities broken out by school, county, and municipal rates. While they identify 259 rates, only 234 pertain to towns and cities. The others are mostly land grant locations. The lower numbers represent the higher tax rates, with number 1 being the highest, and the higher number represents the lowest tax rate, with the lowest being 234. The most recent data for his tax year 2018. The chart on the right shows the school and town rates for Governor Wentworth towns, as well as where the schools rank in comparison to other New Hampshire schools and the town rank in comparison to other New Hampshire towns. The chart on the left provides a visual representation of the equalized tax rate rankings. On the school side, Charlestown has the highest school tax rate, while Hebron has the lowest. On the town side, Claremont has the highest tax rate at $15.27. Looking at our district on the school side, of all the rankings were in the lowest 2 tax quadrants, with Tuftonboro and Wolfeboro being the lowest quadrant. Brookfield, New Durham, Ossipee, and Effingham ranking in the next lowest quadrant. And on the town side, we have Tuftonboro in the lowest quadrant with the same ranking as the school district at 216. New Durham is the next lowest at 127, only 2 places higher than the school district. I'm not sure if that 127 is correct, but anyway. Then we go into the default budget. The default budget falls over $1 million short of the recommended budget. As I have said, we need security services, pest control, internet, fuel, snow plowing, internet services. There is nothing in the list that we can do without. If the school district's proposed budget fails, the default budget becomes a school district budget. The default budget would have some devastating consequences for our students. The school board would have to look at all available options for reducing costs. This would include looking at eliminating some instructional programs, extracurricular activities, athletic programs, transportation, and even personnel. Any of these changes would have a direct impact on our students by reducing the opportunities and services we provide for them. And we urge you to support the budget that's being presented. So, questions on the budget? Diane?
You already answered one of the questions I had by repeating that the state adequacy grant is being reduced by 4% every year.
Every year, yes, the idea is 4% for 25 years, so it's on actually 25 years.
So I'm perplexed. I had meant to ask this at the deliberative session, and I didn't. As I understand it from the actual cost distribution form that was given to, the cost distribution form that I was given in early December that was supposed to be the actual for fiscal year 19, school fiscal year 19, had a state grant total of just under 3.7 million, 3,699,692. And 4% less is nowhere as close to the number that you have proposed in the estimated revenues for the state grant, which is 2.862 million. Excuse me, 3.862 million. So if it's supposed to be lower than 3.7, why was the budget set, the estimate for the revenues, $100,000 higher?
It has to do with the calculation in which they come up with that number, and it's based on student ADM. I think Kathy can speak better to that. So the numbers have gone up, and therefore, you know, there is an increase, but they're still decreasing it by 4%.
Thank you.
It's ADM calculation.
Okay, got it, thank you.
There's more variables. And
Yeah,
yeah.
the tab, the lower.
No, there's actually a formula, and it has to do with how many third graders are reading above and below grade level, and there's a lot to it. So it's not simple.
As we're finding.
So any other questions on the budget at this point? I'm happy to answer those for you. And you know, if you have any questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to us. Our phone numbers are published, our emails are out there. So feel free to contact us if you have questions between now and voting day, because we'll be happy to answer the questions. And if we don't have the answers immediately, we'll certainly get them for you and get back to you. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Rick Surratt, Brookfield Selectman. I'm a candidate for school board at large this year. I retired recently from General Electric Company, 40 years experience, manufacturing management and manufacturing engineering. I got diverse skills in organization, cost cutting, organization efficiency, problem solving, diversity, and I'd love the opportunity to work with the board and continue maintaining the quality of the district and making improvements in the future. And if there's ever, the district ever has a need to rebuild a jet engine, I can help.
Thank you very much, Rick. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you very, very much for your attention. I know that was a long-winded process, but I think we missed What did I miss? The abbreviated part. Oh, believe it or not, that was abbreviated. Okay. And Tim, we have it again tomorrow night. Sorry, folks. Thank you for putting that together too. Okay, we'll move on to the next item if we want to get going.
Well, the next item really is Guy Donnelly is here, and he's making a request related to the indoor track program. So Guy, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'm sure you're all aware of JJIB policy regarding athletic programs. And reviewing our programs that have gone through the formal process, for example, the bass fishing team came to the board, was approved. Just want to give you a little background of indoor track over the years. Students who have participated in the fall cross-country program or fall athletic programs originally wanted to stay with Harvey's workout, so to speak, in the wintertime. So informally, he started a club after school, in which eventually students started competing at the NHIAA state championships in the indoor track program back in 2013. And it just kind of kept developing over the years to really, it's a full-fledged varsity program. And when I did a little research, and Mr. House and I did a little research, we realized it's in year 6. And they've been funding themselves through the program. Coaches have been volunteering their times. There's a significant schedule of 9 indoor track meets every weekend, as well as the state championships. So as you can see in your packet, I'm proposing that The indoor track program be placed immediately on year 6 of the JJIB policy for this current school year. You can see the costs I have broken down, and it's a full-fledged program. We have between 20 to 35 students every winter. Our coaches, like any other varsity program, 4 to 5 days a week with weekend trips to Dartmouth, UNH, and Plymouth State on Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm asking that you please approve our indoor track program on year 6 according to the policy. Any questions?
This just follows the policy that you have to, the
Yeah.
five,
And it came to our attention that
years.
it wasn't on,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is the new policy.
And it really was just the goodness of Mr. Harvey taking the time after school, volunteering his time in this program. As many of you know, Paul, kids loved them, and just developed into a program. And now Lauren Brown, who coaches in the fall with our soccer program and is our varsity boys and girls track coach in the spring, has taken it over and has been successful with it this year, and she did it last year as well.
Okay, go ahead. Hear a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the funding for basically year 6 based on policy JJIBB for the indoor track program. Any questions or comments?
They're in year 6 now?
Yeah.
We almost completed year 6.
Okay. And the funding you have in the budget?
Yep.
It's $1,182. We would take it from a
Yeah.
current.
Yeah, we can take it from current operations. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of approving the funding for year 6 of the, based on policy JJIBB for the indoor track program, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Excellent,
very
thank you, Guy.
That was a long wait, Guy, and you had to go through the budget
Sorry.
process all over again. Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is just a review of what's happening as far as our field trips overnight. We have the Lakes Region Technology Center, the DECA State Conference, and those students are going to Manchester. And there'll be 8 male students, 5 female students, and 2 chaperones. Male and female chaperone. Actually, it looks like there'll be 4 chaperones. It says 2, but then I see 4 names here, so I think there are 4 chaperones for them. The next is the New Hampshire Student Leadership Conference at the Omni, the Mount Washington. And we have Aaron House is in charge of this field trip. We have 3 male students going and 3 female students. We have 3 chaperones, also a mix of males and females. And the slate of offerings at this conference looks phenomenal. It really looks like wonderful things for our students. So I'm excited about that one for the kids. There's someone in particular who is going to be here that really impressed. Oh, John Underwood, the founder of the Life of an Athlete program that you heard about recently. He's going to be there. Some really high-powered speakers. And then New Durham School, grade 6, will be going to Boston Symphony Hall and the Museum of Fine Arts, and that's at the end of March. And we have a regular classroom going, 16 male students and 11 females, and 5 chaperones, and there are the chaperones that are school staff. So that should be a very fun and exciting trip for the kids, I think. It's a busy time for field trips. The Future Farmers of America are also going to the Mount Washington Resort, and this is a collaboration and competition with other chapters of FFA. So again, it's something they do every year and really get a lot out of it. We have 12 male students and 1 female student going, and we have a male chaperone and a female chaperone. Effingham 3rd grade, and this is, they're planning ahead. This is for May. This is 3rd grade ecology school at Poland Spring, Maine, and this will be grade 6, and excuse me, I'm sorry, grade 3. I'm looking at, now we have 5 male students and 6 female students, and 2 chaperones. So that is not an overnight trip, that's just a day trip, but it is out of state, so I always tell you about out of state trips. And we have the 5th grade also going. This one is an overnight trip because they're a little bit older. So they'll be going to the ecology school at Poland Spring. And we have, let's see, 2 chaperones, and we have 16 students. And there will also be supervisors at the facility, so it will be more than just our own faculty there, and there's a nurse on staff. So they'll be going, the departure date is the 21st of May, and they'll be back on the 24th. And that is it for field trips. So busy time. And next I have a request for the Wood Estate Trust. And I think you should all have it in your packets. And this is a different request than we've got in the past, but I think it's actually a very valid request. It's to support some college course enrollment for 5 of our high school students who will have a dual enrollment. This is really something to benefit the students financially and to really kickstart the program and get more students involved. And I think it fits perfectly with the mission of the trust. So.
Okay, any questions, or hear a motion on the Wood Estate Trust? Do we have to approve that, right?
If we need a motion, I'll make it.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the request for the funds from the Woods Estate Trust.
Expendable trust.
Expendable Trust. Any questions or concerns, or? Okay, all those in favor of approving the request for the funding from the Wood Estate Expendable Trust Fund, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you.
That's great. We'll now have 5 students who will be able to enroll in classes, so that's terrific. Thank
That's
you.
great. That's terrific.
And state and federal special education funds, I just wanted to say a couple of words about this because a couple of weeks ago there was an article in the Union Leader about school districts not using their state and federal funds, and several school districts, there were thousands of dollars left on the table. And I just want you all to know that in our grants we have 0 in one account and 10 cents left in the other account. So just rest assured, we make sure we use all our money. Yeah. So, and you could see that in the Union Leader if you can. So really that was all. And then for the school board, I just wanted to let you know that the NEASC 10-year visit is upon us, and the NEASC accrediting group will be here. Well, actually, they'll be here for a few days, but they're looking to meet with you, or some of you at least, on March 17th at 1 o'clock. And the agenda hasn't been finalized yet, but I just wanted to give you a heads up so that if you had that free, that you didn't pencil something else in there.
Excellent.
It should be a nice afternoon. It's really actually pretty enjoyable. And I've seen the report. The report looks fantastic. Met with Guy and the 2 people, the chair and the vice chair, and I think they're going to do a great job. I think they're already impressed actually, which is nice. So that's all I have.
Okay. By the New Hampshire School Board Association, since we met last, I attended the annual meeting in Concord Saturday, the 26th of January, all-day session. Very, very interesting session. Ernie would be happy to know that most of the articles were not supported throughout the program. There was a lot of questions on the articles that were brought forth, and a lot of discussion, but they were basically all voted down, which was a good thing. It was the right answer. So I think it was very good. I'm trying to think. We had a presentation from the Shaker Regional School District. Their school board was School Board of the Year, and they made a presentation on basically what they're doing within their district to promote positive positive school environment and all that, which was good. They did a very nice job. But I kind of look at all of these presentations and I think we're already there. We're already doing that. We don't have to pat ourselves on the back. But anyway, it was good. And we don't have another meeting until May, I think, so we've got some time off. But in the meantime, I did attend as a board member for NHIAA. That was a week before, and we had again another terrific council meeting. There's a lot of discussion still on cooperative sports teams and how that all is going to play out. Districts that have cooperatives that are working very well and some that aren't working very well. And there's still a discussion about those individual students that don't have an opportunity to play a sport that they want because their school doesn't have it, but a neighboring town does. And right now the rules say if you play in the neighboring town on a particular sports team, you can't play on a different sports team back at your home school. And that's a controversy, so they're looking at that to see if they might want to change that policy. Again, it might be an individual piece. So a bunch of different meetings, different boards. I just love being on different boards. It's just fun to go around. Okay, I've got just a few notes here. We did send expressions of sympathy to Andrea Kessler on the passing of her grandfather, to David Casto on the passing of his father, and to Tim Bullmiller on the passing of his father. And congratulations wishes to Fallon Evans on the birth of her daughter, and Elizabeth Arsenault on the birth of her son. And I have a thank you note here that says, thank you, Governor Wentworth Regional School District School Board, for all you do for our students, staff, and towns. Sincerely, Steph Milligan, grade 3 Ossipee. So it's very, very nice to get a note like that, so thank you very much. That's all I have. So let's go to committee reports. Academic Affairs, Wendy is not here. Anybody covering for that?
Yeah.
Yours, Stacy?
So we met earlier this evening to go over policy EFAA, school lunch program meal charges. Tonight is a first read. This takes what's kind of been practice for the district and puts it in a formal policy as required by the federal government. So just so everyone in the audience knows it, it contains information on applying for free and reduced meals, how you can pay for meals, the collections of funds if payments not made. And the big point of this is that anything that's not collected by the end of the fiscal year, the district has to make whole. So we can't go into a new school year with this account being in the negative. We've got to cover it ourselves, so to speak. So we made a few minor changes, and Heather's going to just look it over one more time to make sure it reflects what's occurring, the practices at the elementary schools versus the middle and high schools. So there may be a few revisions when we look at it for our second reading in our next board meeting.
It's interesting, and I'm glad to see in here that we're not going to hire a collection agency to go after the parents.
Yeah, no.
That did happen in a school district where there was about $30,000 of overdue money, and they sent collection agents out to try to collect it from the parents, which that doesn't make any sense.
Our school principals are our collection agencies.
Right, and enforcers, yeah.
No problem with that. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Ernie.
A couple of things. The Building and Maintenance Committee is working with the superintendent. We're looking at schedules to sit down and talk to the people that were wanting to bid on our solar project in Effingham. Obviously, with the budget issues in front of us right now and all the meetings, it's going to be probably 2 to 3 weeks minimum before we have an opportunity to sit down. And so we have to establish a date that we're going to meet them and then set up a time and a location. And we will do that when we have a chance. But we've had 3 companies that indicated they wanted to bid on the project. and that is Revision Energy, Barrington Power, and Borrego Solar. And so the Building and Maintenance Committee is going to meet and discuss the three bidders and then establish the protocol for when we invite them in to talk about what they offer. But the thing the taxpayers need to know is the entire project is paid for by these companies, and it's maintained by these companies. As a matter of fact, one of them says over a period of years, we can buy the whole project out if we want to. So they're giving us a lot of options, a lot of things for the board to look at. Once the board decides what we're going to do, the actual meeting with the contractors will be the entire board.
Nice. Excellent.
So that's the first part. The second part is Jack went to great length to talk about this warrant article for the $200,000. And people sometimes wonder, well, where does it go? Now, I'm not going to tell you all of it, but I now have a monthly report from the district maintenance supervisor, and some anticipated events in the last month. Wheel bearing on the John Deere tractor had to be repaired. Front parking lot lights at the high school had to be rewired because it was tripping the breaker. The art center lighting computer has a data communication fault. We have to bring in IT to figure out what's going on there. The art center has some radiant heat water circulator pump that's loud and failing. We have to order a new one and install a new pump. Ospey Central School exhaust fan has failed. Ospey Central School air dryer bypass valve and the pneumatic heating system has failed. These are just some of the things that we have to constantly do with this $200,000. Actually, it's $150,000. We're looking for the 200. These things keep coming at us. We're staying on top of it. We've built in redundancy, so if one pump quits, we've got another pump to keep the system working, so we're not freezing most of the time. And so that's basically what's going on. We're trying to stay on top of these things, and we'll be working with the superintendent on establishing a date for hearings and moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Ernie. I have finance and human resources, and I've said enough tonight, so I'm not going to say anything more. We're going to go to advanced planning. Down below, you can see that tomorrow night we are in Brookfield to do a presentation in Brookfield. On the 18th, we are in Effingham. On the 19th, we're in New Durham. On the 20th, we're in Ossipee. And on the 21st, we're in Tuftonboro. And to do the same type of budget presentation and warrant overview that we did tonight, and talking about the two petition warrant articles in each one of those towns as required by the RSAs. And any questions on the advanced planning? Okay, public input. Yes, sir.
Some papers will hand out to you guys first. The policy JJIBB, I've been working with the superintendent, the Title IX coordinator, as well as Aaron House, trying to come up with some solutions as far as how sports are funded. And after doing a lot of review of what's spent on athletics, I've come from what I have so far, I've noticed there's a huge discrepancy between female athletes and the male athletes. With JJIBB, it takes 10 years for an athletic program to get 90% funded. What that can result in, especially for the female athletes, is programs failing. This originally started because my daughter plays ice hockey. Ice hockey can be expensive, and the program itself is in its 5th season. It's really struggling. A lot of the reason that struggles, there's no funding. You're having females that are struggling to play sports, and from reading JJIBB, it gives the indication that the school can help athletes that can't afford to play. One of the other problems I found with JJIBB, it doesn't seem as though there's an actual fund for the athletic director or the superintendent to dip into. So if an athlete can't play, the money's not, from what I can see, coming from anywhere other than they're trying to find it from outside of the school. I know for the boys program, they look to the youth program, asking for funds through that to help pay for a high school kid to play. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So what I'm looking to do is basically have JJIBB either rewritten or replaced so that funds can be more easily accessed to allow more athletes to play without the fear of not being able to come up with the money. One of the other papers I gave you guys is another policy that has to do with the school's stance with this, or perhaps the school board's stance on not trying to force so much fundraising on the kids. Well, by having a program like the girls ice hockey or some of the other ones that have no funding at all, you give them no option but to go out and have to fundraise. So the two policies actually contradict themselves, because in one hand you're saying you're going to have to fundraise in order to play, the other one's saying we don't really want you to fundraise. The other issue I found with JJIBB, when it came to the actual money disbursements, there's a lot of sports that are male-dominated that are receiving a much larger amount of funds. I'll take football, for example. The equipment budget alone was over $8,000. The girls' ice hockey program got $0. It's creating a situation where you have a possible Title IX violation. And I think if JJIBB was redone and you worked on how the funds are allocated for equipment, you could find a way to take that equipment budget from each sports line, you know, not just football, but all of them, and take that money, you could readjust that and actually pay for the sports that have no funding. And my hope is by doing that, as well as introducing a pay-to-play situation, you could raise the money that's needed to support all the programs. And the programs themselves will just have to find a way to get their own equipment. Not all teams will be affected by that. As far as, you know, there's several teams that have no equipment budget at all right now. There's a majority of teams that are fully funded, but on one of those papers you'll see there's a whole lot of teams that cap out at 90%. Those teams that are 90%, you know, some of them, like boys ice hockey, for instance, it's been around before the policy was even written. So I don't understand why you choose to fund some programs entirely, including equipment. Some programs you choose not to fund any equipment at all and tell them they have to pay 10%. And then other programs, you're saying, for 5 years, we're going to give you $0, good luck, and then we'll give you 20%.
I do remember when this policy was first written, and I'm not really sure whether ice hockey was a sanctioned NHIAA team at that point in time, but part of it had to do with budgetary needs, budgetary responsibility for the school board. Every team that comes to the school board to establish themselves as an NHIAA sanctioned team is going to cost some money. And anybody can come to the school board and say, okay, we want to have a new team, fund us. Well, you know, we took the position that, first of all, you have to, and this is why Guy Donnelly was here with the indoor track earlier on. Mm-hmm. They followed the policy. They've been in existence for 5 years. They showed the viability of the program after their 5 years. They came and they've requested to to take advantage of the policy as written to get their 20% funding next year, or this year, because this is their 6th year. They started the program with the understanding that this policy is in place. This is how it works. This is how it's done. Some of the programs that have been here, football has been at Kingswood as long as I can remember. That's funded at 100% because that was way before it was an established program. This policy was put into position for any new programs back in 2003, I think is when this was first approved. At that point in time, we wanted to at least have some control over everybody coming to the board for funding. Again, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of this district, that we don't have unlimited funds to just say, okay, start your team, we'll pay 100% of it. So it's a process. However, you may have some valid concerns, and I have a note here that we've already scheduled a review of JIBB for our March Academic Affairs meeting prior to our board meeting in March. So it's already on the calendar to review that policy as it is. What will come out of that review, that'll be the recommendation of the Academic Affairs Committee at that point in time.
Okay, so will there be additional time for the general public to review
Sure.
that then?
Sure.
Because from what I tally out, there's $27,850 that was spent for equipment line budgets for each of the sports. 28,000 roughly. That could fund, what is there, 5 teams right now that have 0% funding? So it just seems like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you have a policy that is creating a situation that could be viewed as discriminatory.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that we have an opinion from our attorney on how Title IX works and how our policies fit into that. But we don't have to discuss that tonight. But there are, we do have a legal opinion on how our policy fits in with that, and it's valid to have a legal opinion to locate where we are. But, however, this will be reviewed at our Academic Affairs meeting in March, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, and is a copy of the legal opinion available to the public?
It can be once the board has a chance to review it.
Okay.
Peter, I would also suggest that you put some of your ideas in writing so that Academic Affairs can review some of your thoughts about it.
Okay. Okay, anyone else?
This handout, is this, Peter, is this something you generated, or does it come internally?
I have a stack of them over there for you. It came from me. Well, from Aaron.
Okay. So can I just ask, does this include, is this middle school and high school together?
I believe it's
For
just high
example, where it says like, football has 4 teams in the program.
I think it's just high school.
Baseball has 5 teams in the program. Some of those numbers
Why
don't.
don't we just review,
Yeah,
we should
well-
probably just review it
Yeah.
together.
That's a good point to review all of that during the meeting in March.
I just want to be sure the public listening understands this JJIBB policy is for new programs coming into the school district.
Right.
And ice hockey, up about $1,000 for equipment per player, potentially, quite expensive. And so the policy was already established that if you want to start a new team and you want it to be a Kingswood team, there is a process where you've got to prove that A, it's viable, and it starts with the parents, and then gradually the school district will pick up the cost until we pay 100%. So they just need to understand that what he was talking about is, or 90%, is the fact that this particular policy is about new athletic teams. The football team has been around forever, as an example. And you're right about the Title IX, we do have to be careful about that.
Yeah. The other thing I did want to mention too, inside of that budget line items, it specifically states that coaching stipends are not shown, uniform expenses are not shown, and some other new purchases, but it doesn't specify what those are. One of the other issues I just want to bring to your attention too, after speaking with the athletic director, It's not very clear when coaching stipends are even supposed to come into play for those programs that are new. Does it come in year 1? Does it come in year 6? Does it not happen till 10 years in? The jerseys for these teams to play. I know the girls' ice hockey program were given hand-me-downs from the boys' team, and the boys' team was purchased through the youth program. So at what point does the district pick up the tab for new jerseys? You know, there's a lot of problems with JJIBB. It's not just about, you know, the basic funding. It has to do with the ability to field teams. It has to do with the discrimination end of it. Honestly, if the district's policy, after reviewing it, if they truly feel that they're not in violation of Title IX, I would like to have somebody look at that further, because I don't feel as though they are.
We're not going to make the determination that we're not in violation of Title IX. That'll be an opinion from our attorney. We're not going to sit here and say we're not in violation. That'll be a legal opinion that we get to justify what we've done and what we haven't done. So we're not going to sit here and say we're not in violation. If we have something to correct, we'll correct it. But if our attorney says you're perfectly fine the way you are, then that's not our opinion, that's a legal opinion.
But when I was up there standing in front of you before, you said that you already had the opinion that you were non-violent. We asked them to give us a basic idea of what Title IX is and whether whether there's something we need to be concerned about. Up front, they said no. We haven't really, the board has not seen this to really review. So we're going to go through the whole process. We'll review JIBB. We'll take a look at the opinion. We'll look at any changes that that we may want to make to it and see if they fit this Title IX process as well. We may make some changes that may put us in violation. We don't want to do that either. Okay. So once it's reviewed, we'll take it to legal counsel to make sure we're on firm legal ground, and then we'll take it from there. All right, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. So, yes.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you say that you were going to give the full budget presentation at the remaining hearings?
That's the intent, unless there's somebody there that says, I want to hear it. I mean, if there's one or two people there and they say, we've already been there and we don't want to hear it again, I don't have to do it.
Okay.
But my intent is to make sure that any information we have available from the deliberative session that we can present for the people that weren't there, if they want to hear the budget presentation, I'll be happy to do it.
So tomorrow night, you're scheduled to be in Brookfield?
Yes.
At 6 o'clock? There's a 6 o'clock public hearing for the town budget.
Would that mean?
That's true, that's moved. We made an agreement that the school committee will come in at 6 o'clock and start, and we will follow.
Okay, so the school board will be there first, and the budget hearing will be after the school board finishes. That's from your selectmen.
So my guess is that you might want to skip the budget presentation.
Either that or talk very fast.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And bring your boots.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, if nothing else, I will entertain a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A, semicolon 3, paragraph 2 for legal, personnel, and student matters.
So moved.
Okay.
Jack?
Yes.
Do we need to give another public input opportunity?
I did. I asked for that.
I missed it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Oh, I didn't do closing. I didn't do closing.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So.
Thank you for standing up. and keeping-
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I should
Ernie,
have.
yes?
Yes.
Yes. Jack, yes. All right,
Should
we're ready.
have stood
Thank
up
you.
because I can't see the rest of it.
Thank you very much for coming.
That's